Welcome back to the 2020 edition of the Akada Children's Book Festival. I am your host, Joyce Daniels. And if you are just joining us, please tell us where you're logging in from. Share your excitement. The very first workshop is about to begin, but not before we hear from the convener who worked tirelessly to make this a reality.
Hello and welcome back to the Akada Children's Book Festival. I say welcome back because I know many of you attended our first edition last year. Welcome back to the second edition. And yes, here we are. We made it despite the pandemic, despite COVID-19, despite lockdown, stay at home, social distancing. Here we are. Hooray! Give yourself a huge pat on the back for making it. Yes, 2020 will not get you down. So, welcome to the second edition of the Akada Children's Book Festival, coming to you from Lagos, Nigeria. This year's event is going to be as brilliant as last year's event. And you know what? The fact that we're online means that we can reach more readers. Oh yes, we're going to share the love. That's the theme for this year. Light up the world, share a story. Light up the world, share a story. So we're going to be sharing lots of book readings, book chats. We have story time. We also have a couple of new items. We have Gigglebox, comedy for kids. We have to lighten things up a little. We have Happy Tunes. And we have Mummy Daddy Me, Let's Work Out. So all I can say is that you don't want to miss any of the free sessions. All of the sessions tomorrow are free. All the sessions tomorrow on day 2 of the festival are free. Today, we have the professional development workshops. So if you're a writer, an author, publisher, illustrator, day 1 of the festival is for you. It's not too late. You can sign up for as many of the workshops as you choose. We have at least 9 of them. And they cover themes such as the business of books, digital books, perfecting your book craft. And in these workshops, you'll learn things about how to get over writer's block, how to start your book. And then once you've written and you've got a complete manuscript, what do? You need to edit. So we have a workshop on editing. We also have workshops on illustration. We also talk about developing your first app. And you've written the book. You've got a physical copy, but what about the electronic copy? So we talk about digital books, we talk about ebooks, and then we talk about how to unbury your books so that readers can actually find your books to buy the books, right? That's very important. So we have a packed day for you today. Day 1, Friday, October the 30th, 2020. Have a packed day for you today. Back-to-back workshops. Pick as many as you like on the hour, every hour. There'll be a different workshop right up until evening time. So it's not too late. Tell as many people as you know. Before I go, I want to say a big thank you to our sponsors and our partners. And I'll name just a few: Flutterwave, NNNG, Clout, Wazobia FM, Punch, Children's International School, Corporate Dance World. Thank you for supporting this event. Without you, it would have been a lot tougher. We're really glad that you're on this journey with us. So once again, enjoy all the workshops today. Don't forget tomorrow's the free, fun family day. Tell everyone you know, and we look forward to seeing you at as many sessions as you can make of the Akada Children's Book Festival from Lagos, Nigeria. Bye-bye.
It is beautiful to have this festival happen in spite of the global pandemic, and it is no mean feat. A big thank you to all our partners, speakers, vendors, team members that have made this a reality. Without further delays, we will go straight to the first session of the Professional Development Workshops. If you're looking forward to writing a children's book or you have a manuscript, then stay tuned for this session on writing engaging children's books.
Olubunmi Aboderin Talabi is an author, a publisher of Clever Clogs books, and the convener of the Akada Children's Book Festival. She's passionate about creating visually engaging, culturally relevant content for children and has a desire to see steadily increasing literacy rates across the world. Her published books include Toby Visits the Conservatory, Cobe the Antelope, Diary of a Toddler, Toby Bakes a Cake, Toby Learns to Swim, and Why Do You Wash Your Hands? Olubunmi has written a number of articles in the areas of commerce, agriculture, resource maximization, sanitation, and land use in Nigeria. Her passion for writing developed into collaborating with talented artists to create beautifully illustrated children's picture books designed to make reading attractive, inspire innovation, and excite children, parents, and teachers.
Hello everyone, it's great to be with you at the second Akada Children's Book Festival. My name is Olubunmi Aboderin Talabi and I'm a children's picture book author as well as the publisher of Clever Clogs books and the convener of the Akada Children's Book Festival. Once again, welcome. So, right now I'm going to be talking about writing engaging children's books. So many people send me messages through Instagram or Twitter asking me to mentor them, that they inform me of their enthusiasm about writing for children, and they ask me to share some ideas and some tips with them. So it's partially in response to that I've put these slides together, just summarizing what I understand and what I apply when I am writing my children's books. So far, I've published a number of them, including the Toby series that consists of Toby Visits the Conservatory, Diary of a Toddler, Toby Bakes a Cake, and the recently released Toby Learns to Swim. I've also written Cobb the Antelope, illustrated by Awa Ali, and Why Do You Wash Your Hands as well, which comes out which is available, in different indigenous languages as well as in English. So, writing engaging children's books. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to tell you what I told you. All right? So, there's 7 points to remember. 7 points. If you're taking notes, now is a good time to get out your paper, your notepad, your pencil, or bring out your iPad and start taking notes from this point, all right? 7 points to remember. Number 1, detail. If you want to write engaging children's books, you need to pay attention to detail, and I'll explain in a bit. Number 2, decide. You are going to have to be very specific and make decisions about what type of book, what category, and so on and so forth that you want to write about and for. Number 3, read. You are going to have to read copious amounts of industry material even before you get to number 4. And number 4 is to write. Did you notice that? The first thing, an engaging children's book, is not to actually start writing, but to think first. It's number 4. Writing is number 4. You think first. You look at the detail. You decide what category, what age, what purpose, whether you want to self-publish or seek a publisher. You read, and then after you've done those things, you start to write. So write is number 4. Number 5 is select. You select your illustrator very carefully. Number 6 is edit. Edit, yes, edit. It's not a bad word, it's not a dirty word, it's actually quite essential.
in the book writing process, particularly if you want to write engaging children's books. There's some people who have sent me their books. They want me to read it, to read what they've written, or want me to read them. And even though many times the concept is great, the books are just simply, too voluminous to be engaging for children. So a little bit more about that in a minute. And then number 7 is sales, because what's the point of doing all this work and you're not able to sell the books? You're not writing those books to keep them in your garage. You actually want people to read them. You want to be able to sell them. So those are the 7 points that I'm going to be talking to you about during this workshop. Detail, decide, read, write, select, edit, and sales. All right, so here we go. Number 1, detail. You need to research the sector. You need to understand the different types of children's books. There are board books, there are picture books, there are picture story books, there are books for early readers, there are young adult YA books, there are bedtime story books, there are read aloud books, and there are school books. So I have lots of different examples of books here, which I'm going to use these for my illustration. So lots of different types of books. Board books are the hard books. Some of them, have toys in them. They have sound. They are difficult to destroy. You know what babies are like, young children. When they get a hold of a book, they have a tendency to want to explore, and then after a while the books become like this. So the reason for board books is partially to make them less destructible, more durable during the early years. All right, so board books, picture books are books with ample pictures and, fewer words and so on and so forth. Early reader books are books that are, they have pictures, they have words, but they're easy to read and they're good for children transitioning out of picture books before they get into, full-on chapter books. This is an example of a chapter book, though it's still an easy read chapter book. It's an excellent book, by the way. Read aloud books are books that are specifically written to be read aloud. Like most of my Toby series books, they're all written to be read aloud. And then school books, textbooks, and things like that. So decide what type of book you want to write. Then think about the age group that you're trying to appeal to. And you may think it doesn't matter, I just want to write for children. But what you're going to write for children who are 0 to 3 is quite different to what you write for children who are 7 to 13. Different to what you write for children who are 2 to 4, 3 to 8, or 5 to 9. Depending on which country you're in or which publisher you're speaking to, they may categorize the ages in different segments. But broadly speaking, the segments are 0 to 3, 2 to 4, 3 to 8, 5 to 9, 7 to 13. So you do your research and you decide which age group your book is intended for. Next is your word count. You don't need to write 30,000 words for a picture book. In fact, there's some books that have 0 words, right? And they're just pictures. Those are like early baby books. Just, different images to explain. Let's see if I have something that does that. All right, so I like languages. And in order to encourage different languages at home, whenever I had the opportunity to travel abroad, I go to their bookstore, even if I don't speak the language. This, for example, is Turkish. And I pick up their baby books because they're great ways of, figuring out language, teaching language to young children. The image is there. You can see what it is. The word is there. But some of them don't even have words. They have the images. This is an example of the type of book that you would get for someone that's 0 to 3. A question that I get frequently is, what book should I get for my child? Depending on the age, you need to pick appropriately. So some books, they have no words. Some books have less than 300 words. Like this one. This one is less than 300 words. All right. So it just has giant pictures, very, very few words. And then some books have less than 500 words. This one would fall into that category of less than 500 words. So it would look something like this, right? And then some other books are up to 1,000 words. So you would have this one, for example, and so on and so forth. So it depends on the type of book, depends on the age you're writing for. And then you need to decide what's your genre. Are you a here and now realist like me? Like most of my books, all the Toby books are here and now realism. They're set in modern day Lagos, Nigeria, and they detail the day-to-day life of a young girl living with her parents in Nigeria. Here and now realism, right? Some people may think, no, I want to do fantasy. I want to write, Marvel comic type things, which is great. But you just need to decide what it is that you're writing and then run with it. Some people want to do adventure books. Some people want to do non-fiction books, like self-help books for children or something like that, which is incidentally a market worth exploring. A lady that does those really well, Constance Omaumi Kolalawal, she does some really great non-fiction, useful books for children that talk about things like safety at home and the environment and so on and so forth. So that's point number one, detail. Research the sector, know the type of book you want to write, know the age group that you're targeting, figure out what the word count is for an ideal book for that age group, and then your genre. What style of book are you writing? So let's move to number two. Number two is decide. Decide. You've researched the sector. You've seen everything that's all the various options that are available, or you've seen as many of them as you could find. Now you need to decide. And you need to be very strict with yourself once you've made your decision. So, am I going to write a baby book? Am I writing a book like this ABCD book in Igbo, right? Am I writing a book like this? You decide. So 0 to few words. 0 to few words. Fully pictorial, integrated toy if you need to have a toy, music if you want to have music, if they press it and it makes a sound, that kind of a thing. Decide, are you after a book like this? Well, if you are, then your process needs to fit this format. You're looking for great illustrations, you're looking for, sturdy material, and so on and so forth, right? You're looking for printers who can handle these various gadgets at an affordable rate. Are you going for toddler books, something for children aged 1 to 3? If you're going for a toddler book, something like this, words under 300, under 300 word count. So if you're going for a toddler book, that's what you're doing. You keep it simple. You use things that are familiar, things that a toddler would necessarily recognize and be attracted to, and so on and so forth. Next one, a picture book. Some books, by the way, straddle, toddler books, many toddler books are also picture books. Picture books, 500 words. Some picture books, want to stray beyond that. Well, I guess it depends on if it's a fiction or a non-fiction picture book. So, fiction picture books for children between the ages of 4 to 8. Non-fiction picture books are still okay for children up to the age of 10 because it helps them understand more complicated concepts. And some school books, some books that talk about the body or medical issues, they're picture books, but they're aimed at slightly older children. So those kinds of books, they can range right up to maybe like say 2,000 words, all right? Picture books, the page range for those are between 32 and 48 pages, depending on if it's fiction or non-fiction. Usually for those kinds of picture books for this age group, there's a protagonist, there's a hero, right? There's somebody specific that they can relate to perhaps. It's very easy to read. It's easy to read aloud. Please have mercy on parents who do bedtime story. If your chapters are too dense, if there are too many words, it becomes difficult to get through the whole book in one sitting. Color illustrations and so on and so forth. All right. So we've given this is an example of a picture book, or my new book, Toby Learns to Swim, is another good example of a picture book. Okay, so let's talk about transition books. So these are books for children between the ages of 6 and 9. They are at that age when they have read all the picture books in the house and, in the library, and they're starting to explore and they want to look at things that are a little bit more challenging. So an example I usually give for an excellent transition book is Eno Story by Ayodele Olofichuade and Bolaji Liadi. Great book. A complicated, difficult subject, but told in a manner that is very relatable and very engaging for children. You can see how many times we've read this book. This is our personal, the copy in our house, and see it's dog-eared. So the point is that, you have these beautiful transition books. They still have nice pictures, color pictures in them, but they're written in chapters now. They've moved away. Did you notice, by the way, that picture books do not have chapters? It may seem obvious for some, but for some, you may not realize that, but picture books don't have chapters. They just, have pages. And in fact, quick point, for fiction picture books, bedtime story books, they don't usually have page numbers either. All right, it's really books that are used for schools, maybe textbooks and things like that, or maybe in specific countries. If that's the requirement, then fine. But generally speaking, bedtime story books don't have page numbers. But I know here in Nigeria, it's more like a requirement that we have page numbers, but usually picture books don't have page numbers. Anyway, chapter books are in chapters, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and so on and so forth. And these transition books, they are less than 2,000 words, 64 odd pages, this one is 46, but up to 64 pages max for a transition book. Short chapters, there's action, there's dialogue, simple sentences, usually one idea per sentence still, 2 to 5 sentences in every paragraph. Fewer illustrations, like this one it looks like it has 1. Yeah, it has 2 per chapter. And what else? Sometimes the illustrations are in black and white. This one happens to be in colors. Excellent book. Then after the transition books, you have full-blown chapter books. I'm going to use this as an example of a chapter book, though chapter books can typically be longer than this. This is a chapter book that would be ideal for a child between the ages of 7 and 10. All right. And by the way, just so you know, I don't have any stake in any of these, except for my own books. I don't have a stake in these other books that are not Clever Clogs books. I'm just talking about them because they're brilliant books and really useful for my illustration. And in many times I haven't even met, I don't know the authors personally, or I haven't met them. But these are great books, and I think great books should always be touted. So that's what I'm doing. All right. So this one, Afro, the Girl with the Magic Hair by Okechukwu Ofili, is a good example of a chapter book for children ages 7 to 10. Approximately 10,000 words, less than 5 pages per chapter. Like when we started reading this during bedtime story time, you would do a chapter a night. And then after a while, it became, okay, I would read a chapter, and then, my child would read a chapter, that kind of a thing. Excellent book for building up grammar and, having conversations around, topic and what have you. So less than 5 pages per chapter, short sentences and paragraphs, slightly more intricate plot, cliffhangers, at the end of chapters. Next, you have middle grade books, okay? That's for children between the ages of 8 to 12. And again, these segments vary by country, by publisher, and so on and so forth. So I'm just giving you the broadest terms possible. So these books can be between 30,000 to 60,000 words, and right now they are considered to be books in the sweet spot. In as much as there are not that many books for children in this age range. I think a lady, Victoria Inegbedion, released a book this year called The A-Files. Pretty good book, would fit into this middle grade, YA-ish type range. So 30,000 to 60,000 words, excuse me. It has subplots, it has twists, things are going in this direction, then suddenly it changes and it goes in a different direction. It's thematic. Sometimes there are a group of heroes, not just one protagonist. Like for most picture books, you just find there's one hero, one central character. And these types of books cover all genres, okay? Other examples, things like the famous 5 books, and so on and so forth. These adventure type books would fit into this category, Mallory Towers, those kinds of things. So you have the middle grade books, and then after that you have your young adult books or YA books, and that's for children ages 12 and above, and they could be between 70,000 to 90,000 words. Word counts are important. You may be wondering, Kinney Big Steals, right? Sorry to speak our language here. But it is a big deal because you need your work to be engaging. There's no point trying to write a book for a 3-year-old that has 90,000 words. There's no point giving a 3-year-old a book with 90,000 words to read because it will not sustain their interest. It will not engage them. And your goal is to make reading interesting, is to inspire a love of reading. And one of the ways to do that is to find age-appropriate books, and it is to create age-appropriate books. So we've discussed one, which is to look at the detail, research your sector in detail, and number 2 is to decide. Having looked at all the detail, make your decision about what it is you want to actually do. So we have the baby books, the toddler books, the picture books, the transition books, the chapter books, the middle grade books, and the YA books, all right? A little bit more about the YA books. They're usually complex. They have multiple headliners, but there's usually a star. A lot of them deal with teenage issues, sci-fi sometimes, fantasy sometimes. So an example of that would be the book by Adeyemi, I think Tomi Adeyemi, Children of Blood and Bone. That would be an example of that. Okay, so let's move on to number 3. So third point, if you want to write an engaging children's book, is to read copious amounts of industry material. So read books for children of all ages, read books from different countries, read books written by other authors in your country. Read. By reading, you develop your own communication skills, your own writing skills, you familiarize yourself with what's out there. Look at like the New York Times bestseller list, or visit your local bookstore and ask the sales assistant which books are really moving. Take a look at those books and figure out why. Or even like in Lagos, we have people that sell books sometimes in traffic. Strike up a conversation with one of them and ask them, which books sell. Find out why. Ask them why, If they know why, just listen to their opinion. Listen to the opinion of other people and just read copious amounts of material. Another point I want to mention about reading is it is by reading that you discover the various awards and prizes that are available for writers in your category. Now, some people may even write specifically towards particular awards. There's the NLNG Nigeria Prize for Literature that comes up. I think it's annual, but for children's books, I think it's every other year that it comes up. Last year, it was given to a YA writer, but it would be nice to see that book actually given to a children's book writer. All right, so read up and find details on all of these different awards that are out there. There's the Golden Baobab Award. There's the Children's Africana Book Awards. There's the Caldecott Awards, the New York Times bestseller. There's the Moonbeam Children's Book Awards. There are lots and lots and lots of different accolades, awards, prizes available to different categories of children's book writers. So you find out about these things, you find out about the deadlines, you find out about the criteria by reading, all right? So that's all part of number 3, which is to read. Number 4 is to write. My advice, you don't start writing until you've done all your research, you've decided what you're going to write, you've read up as much as you can, and it's a continual thing, it never ends, right? You keep reading. Number 4, you write. Step 4, not step 1, can't emphasize that enough. What you write needs to be relatable. Something that the child or something that children are familiar with already. For example, Toby Visits the Conservatory. That book is popular with children who visited the conservatory because they can put themselves in the place of Toby and they can say, oh yes, we saw the fish as well. We saw the giant tortoise and things like that. I know there's one parent who tells me that her son is always so excited whenever he goes there and he carries the book along and, you know, he audits the book with everything that he sees. He's like, oh yes, okay, so the next thing we're gonna see is the giant chessboard and all of that. So the point is, when the child can associate with what they see in the book, particularly with the younger children, it helps them gravitate towards the book. It makes it more engaging for them, all right? Now, adults, we see the world from up here, right? But children, they see the world from where they are, from their point of view. You need to consider the child's point of view when you are writing, and you need to consider the language that you're using to make sure that it's something that the child can relate to. There's no point using, 10-syllable words in a book for a 2-year-old. It's not quite gonna gel. So keep it simple. Keep it brief. I can think of a couple of examples of books that have great concepts, but they're just too wordy, right, for children's books, and then they're too colorful for regular chapter books. So they're sort of stuck, not quite in one and not quite in another. So keep it brief, keep it simple. And by the way, if you have any questions, do please type the questions into the chat box on your screen. Okay, and we will do our best to answer the questions as soon as possible. You can also DM me at Clever Clogs Book or at Olubunmi Aboderin Talabi on Instagram, all right, with your questions, and we'll try and answer as quickly as possible. So we're going to move on to number 5, all right? So I hope you remember the first 4. Detail, decide, read, write. Now we're moving on to number 5, which is select. So you've done your writing and you've already done your research. You've decided that you want to self-publish. If you want to self-publish, you need to now select your illustrator. If you're going to a publisher to publish your manuscript, you don't need to worry about the illustrator. The publisher will take care of that. But if you're going to self-publish, you need to select your illustrator. And the illustrator you select needs to be chosen carefully, because some illustrators understand how to do illustrations that are attractive to children. Others simply do not. It's not their fault. They just weren't created that way. It's not their interest. They're not interested. So there's no point trying to force a round peg into a square hole. So look for illustrators who naturally gravitate towards doing things for children anyway, and you're more likely to find compatibility than, for one that's specializing in, horror graphic novels or something like that, right? So select your illustrator carefully. So for me, I've worked with, I think, 4 different illustrators so far. Nicola Anderson is a lady who's done most of my books. Diary of a Toddler, I like her style. She gets me. An illustrator can enhance your work or frustrate your work. You know, the reason why I've worked with Nicola repeatedly is because she understands what I write. She understands what I'm trying to get across, and she actually makes my work better. Thank you, Nicola. Okay, she actually makes my work better because she's able to translate, you know, words into images, and she's able to say things that I don't need to say with the text. So for picture book authors in particular, your illustrations need to do more than just repeat what the text says. Your illustration needs to continue the story, or continue like a subtext in the story while the text is dealing with one particular issue or matter. For Cobb the Antelope, for example, I worked with Arwa Ali because I love her watercolors. She does really nice watercolors. And I commissioned this painting of the map of Nigeria. I like the way she does things. I like her eye. And I thought she was able to capture Cobb and all his travails with the hyenas and everything. And one of my favorite images is the one at the end of Cobb and his mum when they reunite. So I didn't work with the same illustrator because I was looking for a different effect, right? Different look and feel. For Toby Visits the Conservatory and for Why Do You Wash Your Hands, I worked with different illustrators yet again because I wanted a different style. I wanted something that was more familiar, with our environment, so that the illustrations would be as true to life, as naturally realistic as possible. So select your illustrator carefully. That's number 5, okay? Number 6 is the editing process. Recently, I learned that there are 7 different levels of drafts that a writer is supposed to go through before you actually reach the stage when you have a manuscript that you can present to a publisher. Now, you may think 7, oh my wow, who has the time for that? But if you are interested in putting out your best work and not putting out things that have errors, then you may want to pay attention to the 7 draft mantra, all right? And I'm going to give full credit here to Alison K. Williams, also known as the Unkind Editor. That's actually one of her monikers, the Unkind Editor, because she will tell you the truth about your manuscript. So she talks about the vomit draft, right, being the first draft that you produce. That is, you have this idea, you just vomit it out, just type it out real quick before you forget. Just put something on paper. Then the second draft, she calls it the story draft, right? That's where you fill in the gaps, you improve the continuity of the story. So if A goes to B, then B goes to C, and so on and so forth. That's draft number 2. Number 3 is the character draft, right? The motivation and things like that. Obviously, this applies more to adult chapter books, but the same principle can be applied to writing books for children as well. Number 4 is the technical draft, right? Where you make sure things are correct, grammar and all of that. Number 5 is like your personal draft, right? That's the personal edit where you clean it up on paper, right? Number 6 is the friend draft, when you ask a friend to read it for you and ask you questions about what you've written to make sure that what you've written actually makes sense. And number 7, that's the professional draft. When you give it to a professional editor, you actually pay for it, pay the editor to read it professionally. And when they do, please don't be offended by what they say. You are emotionally attached to your work. They are not, so they can be very objective and tell you what they think. One thing I've learned is that it doesn't matter how good you are yourself, at grammar, at reading, at English, Lang, English Lit, there's always a typo in there. And for whatever reason, you don't see it. Maybe because you've read that page so many times. You need to get somebody else to read it. Fresh pair of eyes. You need to read it aloud, get other people to read it aloud and see what it sounds like. Time yourself. How long does it take? Is it something that would be conducive to bedtime story time? Will parents love it? Will grandparents love it? Do the illustrations speak to the continuity of the story, to the relevance of the story? Are the illustrations helping with developing the sub-story? Is it succinct? It may seem counterintuitive, but these picture books are actually harder to write and to complete and to develop than regular books, right? Because you have to be more economic with your words. Every word should count. You don't have room for any superfluous words. So you, more than the author for adult fiction chapter books, you, children's writer, you need the editor, you need the edit process more. And of course, like I said, with every round of edits should come a fresh set of feedback from yourself to yourself and from others to you. Emotionally separate yourself from your work. Yes, every single word there is brilliant and every single word there is important to you, but you want the best version of your thoughts and ideas to actually come out, right? It improves your chance of getting published by an established publisher. All right, so that's point number 6, edit. Point number 7, the cocoa of the matter, as we say, sales. You need to discover what is the best route to market. Now, recently we all went through lockdown, unprecedented in our lifetime anyway, where, you know, entire cities would be told stay at home, everybody stay at home, businesses shut down, everything shut down. And it forced many of us book publishers to go online because we couldn't get our physical books out there, right? There was no movement at one point. So best route to market now includes online. In fact, your online market is probably now your primary market. And if it isn't, you really need to give it due consideration. That may be your best route to market. So prior to COVID, you know, if I were giving this talk, I would talk about whether your best route is through your publisher, whether it's through a literary agent. In other countries, and I hope that we'll see this also develop in Nigeria and West Africa and all of Africa, there are active literary agents. I was recently on a panel where with 2 literary agents who've set up an agency called the Accord Literary Agency, and it's specifically for African children's book writers, African writers generally, but specifically they are interested in children's book writers, and they want to represent the best really on the international stage. So you need to figure out what is your best route to market. Is it going to look for a literary agent to help get your book in front of publishers all over the world? Is it finding a local literary agent or an international literary agent? Is it finding a publisher yourself? Is it publishing the book by yourself? If you are part of a network, I'll give you an example. I have a friend, we went to university together, and he is based in a different country, and he's head of a very, very large NGO that spans all over the world. I mean, all over the world. And he had an idea for a children's book, and then he had an idea to translate it into every single language. So he asked his friends in that organization in different countries, oh, please translate it into the language that is spoken in your country. And in less than 3 months or so, his children's book has become, I think, maybe the number 1 or the number 2 most translated book in the world, right? And he did it by leveraging on networks. If he had waited to go through a publisher, he may not have had that same level of response and speed to market. Though having said that, I think his book is actually distributed for free, I'm not sure. But the point I'm trying to make is this: if you have existing networks, you can leverage on those networks to distribute your books your best route to market may not necessarily be through a traditional publisher. You may be able to move more copies of your book than a traditional publisher. But having said that, 8 times out of 10, going through a traditional publisher is probably the best route to market. Now that ebooks are gaining ascendancy, there's an ebook platform called Smashwords that you should check out. And the gentleman that started Smashwords, I think his name is Matt Coker. Cocker, I'm not sure, but he's very active on Twitter, and he sends out very useful tweets about ways you can get your book to market. And he seems to be like an evangelist for ebooks. He's called to people who self-publish, and he gives you step-by-step instructions on how to get your books to market. All right. So figure out the best route to market, how you can actually get paid for your work. Is it doing book readings? Before lockdown, I used to do a lot of book readings. I got a lot of invitations to come to schools and different events and come and read my books. And I sold the most books through the book readings. But COVID happened, lockdown happened, pandemic changed everything. You know, we went from nice sales to zero, literally zero sales, and we had to rapidly up our game online, you know, so that we could keep the business open, keep paying salaries, and so on and so forth, right? So, is your best route to market through television? Do you need to take out TV ads? Is it social media? Do you want to promote on social media? Is it direct sales, you selling directly one-to-one? Is it through bookstores, and so on and so forth? Is it through schools? And if it's through schools, is it private schools, public schools, international schools, and so on and so forth, right? So think through all these things. What is your best route to market? It may not necessarily be the most obvious one, but by the time you've done a little bit of research yourself, you'll be able to figure it out. All right? So, attributes of a best-selling children's book. We've talked about the seven points, all right? Detail, decide, read, write, select, edit, sales, all right? So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the attributes of a best-selling children's book, all right? And I'm going to use The Gruffalo by Julia Donaldson and Axel Scheffler for this illustration. Many of you, if you're familiar with children's publishing, you will be familiar with this book. Or if you're a parent or grandparent, you'll be familiar with this book. It's one of the best-selling, probably maybe, I dare not say that, but it's one of the best-selling children's books, children's picture books in the world, translated into a myriad of languages. It follows all those basic parameters, right? 32 pages, colorful illustration, a clear audience, right? Simple text, word brevity, it has cadence, it has rhyme, it's, almost like a song, right? And it's tightly edited. Every single word matters, okay? So if you want an example of an excellently produced, excellently written children's picture book, take a look at The Gruffalo by Julia Donaldson and Axel Scheffler. All right, so once again, recap and then we're done. So, number 1, detail, research the sector. Number 2, decide which category, which age, what purpose. Are you going to self-publish? Are you going to seek a publisher? Decide. Are you going to come out as ebook only? Are you going to do ebook and printed copies? Which one's going to come out first, the ebook or the printed copy? Which platforms are you going to be on? All of these things matter, okay? So decide. Number 3, read copious amounts of industry material. And now in the age of podcasts, there are plenty of podcasts for publishing, for authors, for self-published authors, and so on and so forth. So read and listen to useful podcasts. Number 4, you start writing. Step 4, not step 1. Number 5, select your illustrator very carefully. Number 6, edit, possibly the most important step. And number 7, figure out your best route to market. So, I want to say thank you very much for joining me today for this workshop on writing engaging children's books. I hope it's been helpful, and I will now take any questions that you may have. And if your question doesn't get answered on air, just type in what you would like to know into the chat box, and somebody will respond as soon as possible. Okay, so that's actually a really good question. That's a great question, actually. I've just been asked about people sharing books. Somebody wants to know, how do they protect their material from being, distributed without, their permission, or without them earning any remuneration for it? Is that a form of piracy? Excuse me. Okay, so two things. I've noticed that a lot of people put their content on YouTube and it's for free. Like a lot of singers and whatever, they put it out there for free. And in my mind, at first, when the whole thing started, I'm like, if you give away all this music for free, who's gonna go and buy? What's the point? Why would you go and buy, the album? But guess what? Putting their music out there for free has actually helped to improve sales. It's helped to introduce new people to that band, to that song, to that genre. And I think the same could apply to books, but with a caveat, because I'm also a publisher, right? The caveat is this: you need to do what you can to protect your book from being pirated, right? From people making pirate copies, right, of your book. But at the same time, you have to sort of realize that which one is more important, getting more people to know about your book, or just, trying to hoard it, so that trying to protect it, so much so that nobody can copy it and send on to other people. There are things that you can do legitimately. For example, with Clever Clogs books, anybody that buys one of our books, one of our ebooks, the books can be downloaded onto as many as 5 different devices, right? So we understand that in a family you want to share. So we've made provision for that. If we said, no, you can only download it one time and it can only be on one device, I think that would be counterproductive. So we've made it available to people that, okay, fine, we trust you, 5 different devices. We're trusting that you're not selling it and that you're just sharing those 5 different downloads within members of your own family. So different publishers will have their own protocols of what they want to follow. But we've said, okay, fine, we'll allow, you buy one book, you can download it on 5 different devices, all right? So that's our way of saying we understand that if it were a physical book, somebody can see it and say, oh, I want to borrow your book, right? And they borrow the book, they read it, they bring it back. So that's our little way of, doing the let me borrow the book to read type thing. And then I also noticed something else. Large publishers, right? When a big book comes out, like when Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, came out, it was released for free. The first copy that I got was on a device, and it was completely free. And a lot of political books that have come out this year as well, they've been free. I've had about 3-4 books that have been sent. I've seen them on WhatsApp, right? I'd like to think that it's the publisher that's doing this. I don't know. And I think it's a strategy. Again, they send it out there, get people talking about it, buzz, and then more people buy. At least I think that's what I'm hoping that that's what's happening, and I'm hoping that those books were not pirated. Definitely for Becoming, it wasn't pirated. Definitely that one was given out for free. And even though it was given out for free, it still was a bestseller. So there's some sort of paradox going on about, the more you sow, the more you reap, or the more you give out, the more you get back. I think that kind of paradox is at play here. But with intellectual property, you have to do what you can to protect your own intellectual property. And it's a great question. Thank you. And I hope that answers your question. So it's been wonderful hanging out with you today for this workshop on writing engaging children's books at the Akada Children's Book Festival, coming to you from Lagos, Nigeria. It is great to be here for a second year. I do hope that you enjoyed the session. Please, comments, feedback, questions, type it into the chat box and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And there's also a feedback button. Please give feedback on this session. And you can get a certificate of attendance. So if you click on the certificate of attendance button as well, you'll be able to type out how you want your name to appear, and a certificate will be sent out to you acknowledging that you've attended this workshop on writing engaging children's books, or acknowledging that you've attended any of the workshops that you attend during the festival. Thank you ever so much, and enjoy the rest of the day.
I am certain that from now on, we are sure to see more picture books in the markets because you attended this session as you practice all you took away. Please fill the feedback form, and there's even a memento of this workshop that will be sent to you via email. Hit the feedback link and get it all sorted. We understand the need to keep listening and sharpening your learning, which is why this workshop will be available for another 3 months exclusively for those who registered. I hope to see you in the coming workshop. But if you have not registered for all the other workshops, quickly head over to the website to register, or go to bit.ly/Akada 2020 and get access to the class of your choice. We could not have put this year's festival together without the support of our partners. We say a big thank you to Flutterwave, NLNG, Wazobia FM, Cloud Studio, amongst others. We give a quick shout out to the Association of Children's Authors and Illustrators of Nigeria, which is a recently formed organization focused on the growth of this vital industry. You can find out more about Akane by sending an email to hello@akane.org. Check out all the festival highlights, and don't forget to visit the book exhibition. Browse through the art exhibition too. This event has been curated by Clever Clogs Books. And guess what? The Clever Clogs app is now available on the Google Play Store. The app is perfect for children aged 2 to 6. It teaches them how to tell time, colors, shapes, and from time to time, free books are added to the app. So, after the festival is over, check out the new app, give us your feedback so that we can make it even better for you. Today is the exclusive day 1 of the festival. Tomorrow is the free family fun day. There is something for every book lover, children, parents, teachers, and you, everyone. And this year we have some indigenous language children's book readings too. So be a part of it. Join the conversation online using the hashtag Akada 2020 at home. See you soon.